The way that we talk about this is we broke these quarterbacks, or I broke these quarterbacks into tiers, quarterback rooms into tiers, because not long ago, some backstory on this, producer Tyler asked a really cool question about transfers and transfer quarterbacks, and I'm me, so I went nerd, and I looked at all 65 Power 5 teams, plus Notre Dame, right? Power 5 conference teams, and I charted the depth charts, and I charted the battles, because I wanted to know a very specific answer to a very specific question, which is the best way to start any sort of research hypothesis. Last year, I think one of the strengths of Michigan was not just J.J. McCarthy, but because J.J. McCarthy knew Cade McNamara and Alan Bowman were behind him, okay? Alan Bowman, probably going to be the starter at Oklahoma State this year. Cade McNamara, probably going to be the starter at Iowa this year. That's not true of Michigan anymore, right? It is J.J. McCarthy, and then you hope and pray, right? So that led me to the question of depth. So as I charted these things out on this Excel sheet, I also thought these numbers were interesting, okay? Of the schools that play Power 5 football, 42 of the projected starters will be transfers. 42. 25 are in battles, right, as high school players that were recruited to said program. Another way of getting at this is to say, my goodness, how deep does this go? So getting back to tiers. Tier 1, Tier 2. I'm going to start talking about Tier 2 because this is a tier for which I looked at these and I said, you need to have your spring football quarterback wrapped in bubble wrap, right? If you know that you got the guy, you need to put him away. And if you know you got the guy and you don't know what you got behind him, you definitely need to put him away. So as we're talking about these Tier 2 programs, right, with Tier 2 quarterback rooms, bear in mind, it's not a bad thing. It simply says, number 1 is really good, but we're not sure about what you got number 2, number 3, and whether or not if somebody gets hurt, we still trust you to go play in a conference championship or even have a shot to make the college football playoff, right? So that is why when you hear me talk about these tiers, I'm going to use programs, teams, universities, as opposed to individual players. All right. So in Tier 2, I started with Michigan, talked a bit about that, right? Why I think J.J. McCarthy is the guy for which you just have to sit him down alongside Blake Corum and let them watch those 15 practices at Michigan. It's also because you need to find out what you got at 2 and 3, okay? You need to know what happens if the worst should happen, right? And J.J. McCarthy is one play away from being on the bench during the fall. Other teams that go into this list, Penn State, Drew Allar, right? What's behind him? Alabama, sort of, because we don't know who the starter is going to be, and nobody felt really great about how Jalen Milroe played in his one start in relief of Bryce Young against A&M, because A&M went 5-7. Same A&M that beat the hell out of Florida, led by Anthony Richardson. That ain't what you sign up for your quarterbacks anymore at Alabama. Now, we'll see how that changes, or if that changes with Tommy Rees as the offensive coordinator. But we all expect him to go into a battle with Ty Simpson for the job. But it's because neither one of those guys has really set themselves apart. And I don't think that's a good thing if you're Jalen Milroe and you already had a shot to basically show everybody what you're capable of, and you put the ball on the floor and damn near lost the football game, all right? Nick Saban ain't going to do what you putting the ball on the floor. Next on that list for me in Tier 2, no, I had Alabama in Tier 1, so I'm already getting ahead of myself. Let me correct that. Yes, so I had Michigan, Penn State, Tier 2. Florida State, my goodness, that's where I looked at Alabama. Florida State, I got a Tier 2 because Jordan Travis is your guy. Okay, who else you got? Trayshawn Ward is at Kansas State, by the way. Trayshawn Ward, who was great tailback at Florida State last year. Tier 2, Texas Christian. Chandler Morris is interesting. He's interesting because he was the starter when they started the season last year at Texas Christian. He got hurt. Max Duggan came in, didn't give up the job, became a Heisman finalist, quarterbacked him all the way to a national championship appearance at Texas Christian. Now, the guy behind Chandler Morris, Sam Jackson, transferred to Cal. So that means that you're very much a Chandler Morris or bust situation with Kendall Briles in his first year as offensive coordinator. Okay. Utah is really in that Michigan boat. Okay. Cam Rising plays well in the Rose Bowl. I think if he's uninjured in that game, they have an opportunity to come back and beat Penn State because he was that important to what they do. But him blowing his ACL in his left knee, meant that they needed to once again find out what they have behind him. And for the second time that year, they look not deep at all, right? Because as I was thinking about this, I went to go check out what Andy Ludwig, offensive coordinator, said about his quarterbacks and how he's going into the spring. He has said in the same breath, Cam Rising's going to start September against Florida. He also ain't going to do much in the spring. Not because he's rehabbing, although that is a great reason as to why, but because they want to find out what they got behind him. And they need to know that 2, 3, and 4 are good and get good evaluation, because one of the things that's also true is Cam Rising can get hurt, right? You've seen what that looks like. Even against Washington State, when he chose to set out that game, we didn't feel real great about what we saw. So Andy Ludwig's got to figure that part out. Colorado's also in the same boat. As a matter of fact, I'm doing this, right? And I'm going through my notes and I'm seeing who I wrote down as backups for said program. And my goodness, behind Shedeur Sanders, you have one player who played Power 5 football, even college football, that you might think about, but not really. Because Deion Sanders was very clear about saying, I got the quarterback. We all know who the quarterback is, which is another reason that you might not see a whole bunch of high-profile transfer quarterbacks end up at Colorado this year. They don't want to go to a place where they don't think they have an opportunity to compete. Now, that said, I put out this tweet earlier on Tuesday, basically just because I felt like I needed to say it. We had Caleb Williams throw 40-plus TD passes. We had C.J. Stroud throw 40-plus TD passes. Shedeur Sanders threw 40 TD passes against 6 INTs at Jackson State last year. 40-6. I mean, thank you, producer Tyler, who flew in this tweet so I don't have to go off my memory here. Look, Drake May, 38 TDs, 7 interceptions. Sam Hartman, 38 TDs, 12 interceptions. Bryce Young, 32 TDs, 5 interceptions. I went down the list before because I ran out of room because characters and whatnot, but J.J. McCarthy was a 22-5 guy, right? Bo Nix is like 29-7 guy. You know, it's different, but it also underscores just how important Shedeur Sanders is going to be to the success of the Colorado Buffaloes. And right now, I'm really the only person that is in the front seat on this train going, Colorado's going to be good. I kind of find that to be really debilitating because there's nothing about Coach Prime and Deion Sanders that I think is different than Lincoln Riley at USC. Matter of fact, maybe the difference is that Lincoln Riley inherited a really great job at Oklahoma. Like, it was ready-made and built to go to the college football playoff. Deion Sanders has to flip around a 1-11 program at Colorado, but USC was 4-8 when Riley got there, and all he did was raid the portal. Now, I don't want to make it that's harsh. He didn't just raid the portal. He's an outstanding coach, right? And he brought with him an outstanding quarterback, Caleb Williams. But so does Deion Sanders, who not just raided the portal and came out with an outstanding quarterback, but adds Cormani McClain and Travis Hunter. I don't understand, right? And if you got a read on it, tell me, because all the reasons for why I think you doubt Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders have nothing to do with football. They are great at football. They win double-digit games in football. Why are we still discussing this as if it's not even a possibility, right? Anyway, they need Shedeur Sanders to stay healthy for them to have an opportunity to reach the heights that I think that they can in 2023, right? Washington, same difference. Michael Penix Jr. is your meal ticket. Keep him up and healthy. At Oregon, we still don't know what we got in Ty Thompson behind Bo Nix. We just don't. Austin Novosad might be the dude that ends up taking that job anyway, but Bo Nix is your starter, and he makes you go. If you're Willie Stein coming in from UTSA, you got to get that started and sorted. Clemson with Cade Klubnik, you lose DJ Uiagalelei to Oregon State. He's the guy. You need him to stay upright, get that taken care of with some wide receivers that catch the ball. Kansas State, we already know what Will Howard is about. I also need to point this out because I don't think at a national level, at least, we talk about this enough. Will Howard is 6'5", 242. Like, it feels like a fact that just goes in one ear and out the other, but I need to say that, which is another way of saying if Colin Klein decides to start running the offense the way that he played in it when he was at Kansas State, I would not be shocked, especially knowing that you're adding Trayshawn Ward after losing a guy like Deuce Vaughn. You're probably going to run the football a lot, do some QB power, some QB counter. I'm excited for what Kansas State might be able to do. Iowa, Cade McNamara, we will exhaust that point. We will continue to exhaust that point, but he has to be good for Iowa to reach the heights that I think Iowa can reach. I think that's a top 10 program if the offense has a pulse, because the defense has just been that good. For 2 consecutive years, Iowa has had the second best defense in the sport, right? It's them and Georgia. And then finally in this tier 2 is Kansas. That's just how much I love Jalen Daniels and how important I think he is to what they might be capable of in 2023. And Andy Kotelnick has said as much. We are going to take care of him, and we're going to make sure that he understands the offense at a molecular level, because Jalen Daniels has the same juice that Caleb Williams does, that Bryce Young did. He can move around, make things happen. And as I pointed out, I had to be talked into talking about Jalen Daniels as a Heisman candidate right here on this show last year. Producer Tyler, like, RJ, you can't ignore this. I'm like, I don't want to ignore it, but I got my own biases working against me, right? Because like you, I've been watching Kansas football for a very long time, right? Turns out we were all right to believe in not just Jalen Daniels, but Devin Neal, and I should have already put that in my head because I'm a big Lance Leipold guy. By the way, I'm a big Lance Leipold guy for 2 consecutive years. Y'all see it in somebody else's list, and all of a sudden it's got some credence. All I'm saying is I pay attention, right? That's all I'm saying. I pay attention. Okay. Now I can get back into tier 1 where I had put Alabama. Go ahead and reiterate that. I messed up my own list, which is a thing that happens on the show. You're not new. Okay. Tier 1. Let's go Georgia. It's first one there, which is an interesting choice for me because they don't have a returning starting quarterback and they don't have a returning offensive coordinator. Like, a point that is going to be raised and one I'm going to hammer. You're losing the offensive coordinator and the starting quarterback on your national championship football teams. And in Stetson Bennett, you're losing a guy that Kirby Smart repeatedly showed everybody he will go to the mat for. It did not matter that there are more talented quarterbacks behind Stetson Bennett. It mattered that Kirby Smart wanted Stetson Bennett to be the guy. You believe the folks coming out talking about stuff out of Athens, Carson Beck's probably going to be that guy, but Brock Vandagriff was once committed to Oklahoma to play for Lincoln Riley. Okay? That means he can spin it. Gunnar Stockton can also spin it, right? They have 3 guys that I don't think it much matters which one is the starting quarterback, because the defense is going to be so good and Kirby is going to run the damn ball. You need a quarterback that's not going to get on his nerves. And most importantly, wants to be a Georgia Bulldog. And that's all 3 of these guys have demonstrated that by sticking with the program and never even sniffing the portal because they're not playing. I think they're in a really great spot because for me, those quarterbacks are interchangeable, which is a wild thing to say in modern football. You usually have to have a dude that you have built this entire program around, at least offensively, to make it go. That's just not true at a place like Georgia. Next on the list for me, another program that does not return a starting quarterback, but it doesn't much matter because it's Ohio State. And the reason it doesn't much matter because it's Ohio State is Ryan Day is still the head coach. He's still the guy recruiting, picking quarterbacks, developing them. Number 2, it's Kyle McCord and Devin Brown. Okay. Devin Brown, if you have not heard it yet, cannot just spin it. He's the dude that followed Jackson Dart at Corner Canyon in Utah, who was putting up numbers that probably would have won him National Gatorade Player of the Year if his name was Jackson Dart. He's that good. He ends up at Ohio State. The guy that he is competing with, the guy that I think is going to win the job, is Kyle McCord. 5-star quarterback coming out of St. Joe's Prep in Philly, where he won 3 state championships. Do you know who he was throwing footballs to at St. Joe's Prep? Guy by the name of Marvin Harrison Jr. Another way of saying they've been playing football for a very long time. And there are a lot of things that can hurt you in a quarterback competition. But one of those things is not, hey, I have chemistry and a kinship with the best wide receiver in the sport since high school. You might take advantage of that if you're Brian Hartline or Ryan Day. And that can't be seen as shade to Devin Brown. That's how it shakes out. Does it also mean that Devin Brown is not good enough to lead Ohio State against Michigan and maybe get a win? That's how good both of those guys are. But if you're going to make me pick one, I'm going to pick the guy that played with the best wide receiver in the sport in high school and already has that connection, right? One of the things I love hearing quarterbacks and wide receivers talk about is how eye contact and hand signals. Say everything. They know when people are going to break, how they're going to break. They know that they're reading the same coverages. They know when they got to take a shot, or they know when they can win. That's tremendous. That is huge. And I think you'll see Ohio State take advantage of that. Next on the list, I talked about Alabama, got ahead of myself, but point still stands. I think it's going to be Ty Simpson or one Jalen Milroe. I'll mention Ty Simpson is the son of a college football head coach. Those guys seem to already know how to spin it. They certainly have an understanding of the offense. And the playing field is much more level now because Jalen Milroe's brought in, learns Bill O'Brien's system. Not to say that the system's going to change grossly because Nick Saban's still the head coach, but it does mean that Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson probably going to have to learn the same system at the same time. And the guy who gets in front of that probably wins the job, especially as they're tipping their hand down there in Tuscaloosa going, we would like to get back to running the football and pounding the hell out of people because we didn't like not having wide receivers that could run our wide open system last year. And if you're Nick Saban, you can do whatever you want. They can come out there and flex bone and win football games. Next on the list, Tennessee, Joe Milton, Nico Iamaleava. See, I got to say it slow. I'm going to speed it up, but I got to say it slow right now. I think that's a good situation. You have a guy that I think is as talented as Anthony Richardson guys in Joe Milton. Talk about that a little bit later. And everybody understands what Nico is about. 5-star prospect who is just as enormous, if not, I should say, he's as tall as Joe Milton. He's not as wide as Joe Milton, but give it time. Then you got LSU, Jaden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier. I think both of those guys are good enough to start, right? And I think we kind of saw that. Garrett Nussmeier, why are you throwing the football over the mountains? Because I can. Why are you throwing go routes? Because I can. I like that. And with Malik Neighbors coming back, you're going to throw it deep, right? Because that's what that dude wants to be. He wants to be the next Keyshawn Boutte. Jaden Daniels is also going to take care of the football. Well, Brian Kelly seems to value one more than the other. We'll see how that shakes out. But it's nice to have both of those guys. Notre Dame, I think you're in a good spot, and I don't like Tennessee. You have a seasoned vet that is talented as all hell in Sam Hartman, and you got a Tyler Buchner coming back off of an injury. Tyler Buchner was good enough to start against Ohio State last year, right? That was the number one. Now it seems like we're going to figure some things out. I don't rule out the Taysom Hill for the Tyler Buchner. Put a package in there, have him in the slot. Dude's fast, throw him the football. That's just me, though. Also, Sam Hartman has the ACC record for TDs, right? And as much as I like to talk about Sam Hartman, two things on this one. One, find me the receivers he's throwing to, okay? I'm not kidding. Michael Mayer's gone, all right? I just tell me who they are, okay? When we figure that out, then we can talk about him spinning it good. Another thing to take into account about Sam Hartman is he is brought in to do what Drew Pine couldn't do, okay? Drew Pine, damn good quarterback, probably going to be a starter at Arizona State, right? Won a bunch of football games at a time when nobody thought that he was ever going to be the dude, right? Even going into the preseason, it's like, nah, dog, it's going to be Tyler Buchner. It's not going to be no Drew Pine. And that dude came in and ran the offense and ran it well. But when you need somebody to go spin it against USC, just didn't have enough. That is what Sam Hartman's here to do. He is in South Bend to win that football game, right? The kind of football game that you might lose because you got to keep running the football because the guy that's throwing it can't exactly make the throw. That's what Sam Hartman does for you. Okay. Next after that is SC, Caleb Williams. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Miller Moss, Malachi Nelson. Oklahoma, same difference with Tennessee and Notre Dame. Dylan Gabriel's coming back for another year. Jackson Arnold, National Gatorade Player of the Year. True freshman. Sit him. Start him against the SEC. Golly, in 2024. It's been 3 years, right? And I'm still not ready for that. I'm still going, I liked winning 10, 11, 12 games a year. I like having a room rented at the college football playoff. That's done. That feels over. I'm still trying to make peace with that. Okay, for rounding out those last three teams that I think are in tier one, Texas, Texas Tech, UCLA. I'm going to touch on Texas Tech and UCLA here and then talk about Texas a little bit later on. Texas Tech has two guys that returned who started football games for them and were pretty good. Baron Morton and Tyler Shuck. They also had to split time with one Donovan Smith, who's probably going to be the starter down at Houston. Reason I point that out is Donovan Smith threw for more passing yards than the other two guys. But the other two guys also threw for more than 1,000 yards when they were able to play. 9 games started between them. Problem for Texas Tech isn't the quarterback. It's the offensive line. They gave up 41 sacks last year. You can't do that. You can't do that and expect your quarterback not just to be good, but to be upright. And that really, really hurt Joey McGuire in that year one. But the brand is strong. Hashtag Bodega Boys. Brand is strong. Maybe Joey McGuire gets that joke. If Joey McGuire gets that joke and wants to tell me about it, I would love to hear it. When I say the brand is strong, because you know the brand Texas Tech and the Bodega Boys, RIP. All right. Somebody else got that joke and they're laughing too, and I appreciate you. All right. UCLA, it's about Dante Moore versus Colin Schlee for me. I know Ethan Garbers is in there, but I think it's either going to be the guy that started at Kent State or the five-star prospect who's really, really, really good, guys, and is good enough to lead UCLA into what I think could be a really cool season, 2024 in the Big Ten.